Hello, my friends. Welcome to my channel, Paying the Ferryman 777, and part two of my story of my spiritual awakening. Thanks for joining me. Like I said, it's part two. So if you want to watch the first video, I'll put a link below for you. I'd recommend you watch that first so you can follow the story. There's a continuation of sorts, I hope. So, yeah. It was now that I guess I decided that I would take action and start to heal the things that needed to be healed, start to work on myself to hopefully have a nicer life, to stop suffering so much. After Lucifer gave me the magic stone, which I talk about in my previous video, um, it gave me a respite from the suffering that I had been feeling day to day. Um, it wasn't long after the visit from Lucifer that I would seek out and find um, a tribe so I could partake in ritual with the sacred medicine, ayahuasca. It was actually literally within a few days. I had a fire inside me. I had a clarity for the first time in a long time. I had a hope in the first time for a long time. And in this moment of clarity, in this moment of peace, in this moment of tranquility that came after Lucifer's gift, I was able to figure out what to do. I was able to decide, oh, I'm going to go and do ayahuasca. That should help me. Something that didn't come to my mind before. I guess I was a bit lost in a spiral of negativity. And it wouldn't be the first time that I had taken ayahuasca. In fact, the reason it came to my mind in that moment, the reason it appeared as a solution to me was because I had done it once, 10 years previous, something like that. I'm terrible with time. It was a long, long time ago. And it was at another stage in my life, um, where I, I guess I had been just researching it online, listening to what people said about it, and wanting to have that experience. So I'll tell you a little bit about that experience first before I continue with my story. So, like I said, 10 years before this moment in my story, I had researched it a lot. I watched a bunch of documentaries, like YouTube videos and stuff like that. And then I decided to buy the ingredients on the internet. And the ingredients came, and I brewed the medicine. I brewed the tea in my kitchen. And um, I basically sat down in my living room after having brewed the medicine, with no previous experience or um, guidance, only what I could research, only what I could understand from the internet. I prepared the space. I lit some candles, put some incense, and I took the medicine. I took quite a large quantity of the medicine at that time, and I lay down on the sofa and I just waited. And as I waited for a while, and I thought to myself, maybe nothing's going to happen. Maybe I didn't make it correctly. Maybe there was some contamination or something like that. And I almost started to give up and say to myself, "Oh, this is a flop." But just then, while I was lying on the sofa, I felt a strange sensation in my feet. My feet became really cold, like ice, the tips of my toes. And this feeling of cold started to move its way up my legs very slowly. But it was this freezing cold moving up my legs, very surreal, very unusual feeling. And this feeling of cold kept advancing and advancing and advancing up my legs, up into my stomach. And then when it kind of got around my chest level, I started to get a bit panicked. I was like, well, what's going on? Am I dying? Why is my body going cold like this? And it got to my heart, and then I thought, no, this needs to stop. My heart is going to stop. And I panicked, and I tried to fight this feeling that was coming up through me, this coldness that was coming up through me. And I started to breathe rapidly, like hyperventilate. I was like, no. And at one point, I don't know why, but something said to me, just relax. And I took a big breath in. And as I breathed out, the feeling that had been advancing, that had kind of stopped at my heart when I started to panic, just shot up through me. The coldness came to the top of my head, and it was as if my spirit, my soul, my consciousness was ripped out of the top of my head. And instantly it was my sense of self, my consciousness was encapsulated in a bubble, in a ball. And really fast, the ball just shot off into the universe, into space. And it was going so fast. And it was almost like I could feel this movement, this like a bullet going through the universe. And it traveled so far that it was as if it ended up back in the same place. It was like I traveled all the way to the end of existence and then back again to the same place. And I was still lying on the sofa, but my vision went like gray, and I could see a bunch of figures, a bunch of beings, intelligences. They were tall, they were kind of gray. I couldn't make out details, but they were humanoid shapes, right? And they were all around me, in a circle around me. And I could sense a concern, like a loving concern, like they wanted to take care of me, like they wanted to look after me. And they started, like, in a way, touching me, doing stuff with me. Like, I don't know exactly what it was, but there was this sense of care, this sense of love. I almost felt like I was on a medical table, and all of these beings around me were like doctors or something like that. So I passed through this process with them, and then I had a lot of visions. I had like all these sorts of these colorful visions coming, right? Fractals and what we would consider like psychedelic colors and things like that. I saw like uh, tentacles almost, or roots coming out of the forest, which is where this medicine comes from, right? Traditionally from South America. And I saw all these like these tentacles or these roots coming out of the planet, out of the forest in South America, and wrapping around the planet, and then coming and wrapping around me. There's a very strong connection with this place that I had never been, never planned to go there, but I could feel this energy from there, this beautiful energy from there. And the process was quite long. A lot of visions came, a lot of things happened. Um, at one point, I I sat up and I opened my eyes and I looked around the room. I looked at the furniture and I looked at, you know, what was around me. And it started to break. It started to come into pieces. Like it the cabinet, for example, it like the door came off it, and then the top piece came off, and it was like it was being deconstructed, right? The television, the table, it was like they were broken down into their component parts. That was fascinating. And then the walls, they sort of dissolved, disappeared, broke into chunks. It was like reality. The whole of reality was disintegrating, breaking into smaller components. And then those components, those pieces of the furniture and pieces of the walls, they broke again into smaller segments. And then those segments, they broke again into smaller pieces. And then those pieces, they broke again into tiny pieces. And at this stage, it was like dust. It was almost like sand. Everything had broken down into like an atomized version, all spread out. Didn't look like what it was anymore. And uh, then those pieces of dust started to kind of like evaporate or explode until I was left in a void, like a dark void. And then it got a bit scary. It's like, whoa, what's happening? Like, again, I thought I was dying. I thought that maybe this is what it looks like when you die. Everything just starts to break down. Reality starts to disintegrate. And I panicked again. So all that was left was my sense of self, my consciousness or my awareness in a void, in a black void. And then like how all of the physical things around me, they broke down, they became nothing. Then I felt like my awareness was doing the same thing. It was like my consciousness was also being affected by this same process. And it was like my sense of self and my awareness was breaking down and breaking down and breaking down. And it was becoming smaller and smaller and smaller until the point where I was just a tiny point. My consciousness was very, very small. My sense of self was almost about to blink out of existence. It was like I was about to not exist anymore. And it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I don't exist. I don't actually exist anymore. And as it shrunk and became smaller, and I felt like I was just about to blink out of existence, I took a deep breath and I said, no, no, I exist. I exist. I affirmed to myself, I exist. I exist. And my consciousness expanded again. And then the dust reappeared. And then the dust formed back into little blocks. And then the little blocks formed back into the bigger pieces. And then the bigger pieces formed back into everything that was originally in my space, everything that was in the room. It all came back together again. So the medicine, it took me to the edge of existence. It took me to a place where it showed me what it would be like if you didn't exist. And then it was my own consciousness, my own affirmation that brought me back and restructured everything again. And that was a great lesson. It was almost like the medicine was showing me a way to be very grateful and to appreciate the simple fact of existing, regardless of anything else in life, regardless of how things are going. The fact that you exist deserves gratitude, deserves your your gratitude. Yeah. So that was another part of the process. Um, a third part that I'll share as well was this being, this entity that I met. I There was a stage where I thought, oh, okay, now it's over. Now it's done. I'm finished. That was plenty. And I cleaned up and I said, I'm off to bed now because I've had enough of that. That was a lot to process, a lot to take in. And off I went up to bed. When I lie down in bed, I realized, oh no, it's not finished. I was too anxious to for it to be over, but it wasn't over. Um, when I lie down in bed, I felt an energy. I could see this beautiful feminine form, this female form, in the shadows, in the darkness, with my eyes closed, and there she was. And it was like she was made out of rainbow. It was like or the outlines of what I could see of her had a rainbow effect, had a rainbow color. And she was right there, right in front of me. And she was very beautiful, very feminine. Um, and she actually came on top of me. I could feel her physically. I could feel her touch on my body. I could feel this sensual energy as well. It was quite sexual. Um, this rainbow woman on top of me. And yeah, there was this moment of kind of interaction, this like hot, spicy, um, little bit of love between me and her. And it was quite surreal again, and visceral and physical. The feelings were wasn't just like a vision in my head. It was like on top in front of me, physically touching me, and I could feel it. It was quite quite the experience. Quite the experience. That medicine that I made, um, it was made with two components: a vine, and that is made. It's from the jungle in South America, and a second plant called Mimosa hostilis. It's a plant that contains DMT. So these two plants together, when made into the tea, they can bring about this visionary effect. The medicine in that I would discover later in Brazil during my healing process, my spiritual awakening process, would be made of the same vine but a different helper plant with DMT in it. So there is some variations in the the making of ayahuasca, although I suppose the name ayahuasca is one type, and then different tribes, different peoples would have different names for the medicine. Um, but yeah, it was like this experience of ayahuasca 10 years previously, of this medicine from South America, in some way, I feel called me there. I had no plans to go to Brazil. It wasn't on my radar. I had no plans to move to South America. But life, ah, 10 years later, life brought me there. in a serendipitous sort of fashion. And I do feel like that energy, though the spirit behind the medicine called me there in some way, or spirituality was moving things in a certain way in my life that would get me there to help me, maybe to wake me up. The whole point of this spiritual awakening, and I think it started even back then, 10 years ago, 10 years before this moment in Brazil. So that was my first experience with ayahuasca. It was very intense, very strong. And it definitely changed me, for at least for 6 months after. I had a very grateful attitude to life. I was very positive, very happy. I even started to meditate and look into spirituality a little bit. I read some books about Buddhism and actually achieved, in a certain respect, some type of illumination, or some level of growth. Um, Almost like riding a roller coaster of vibration. I did achieve some higher perspective, but life is messy, and over time I returned to earth, let's say, and kind of just forgot about spirituality whatsoever. Got back into the rat race and the run of things, and life went on. And so coming back to my story, back to Brazil, after I got my magic stone from Lucifer, he gave me the gift of sight. It would only be a couple of days after that where I had found a tribe pretty close to where I live, and that served ayahuasca. And I contacted them and organized to go there the very next weekend. And part of this moment, part of this process, I feel like it started to happen, or it came about because in the previous months, the few months before, I had started to develop an interest in magic, in trying to understand. I suppose the meaninglessness and the pointlessness that I was feeling, for life, being quite material and being kind of pointless as it seemed. I suppose the turn to magic, the turn to trying to understand things from a different perspective, was what in fact actually started this process. I've heard it said that when you look into magic, magic looks into you. So a few weeks prior, maybe a couple months even prior, I had started to learn more about magic. I was just watching YouTube videos. Um, there's a guy I like. I owe him. His name is Thomas Sheridan, another Irish guy. His old videos about magic and stuff like that, were a great resource for me at that time, and it gave me a kind of a foot in the door into what is magic and stuff about the occult and things like that. So, shout out to him for that. He so when I started to look into magic, and I started to practice or do a couple of little magics, let's say, on the weeks prior to the visit from Lucifer, which sort of makes sense. I was looking into magic, and then I had a magical experience. So, the weeks and months prior to his visit, I had only done a couple of very simple magical actions. Something you can do, anyone can do very, very easily. For example, I made some magic uh, squares, which is a very simple process. I just took a square piece of paper, and on the piece of paper with a pencil, I wrote certain things that I wanted to remove from my life or to maybe to get control of. For example, alcohol, because at the time, I would have used alcohol as a kind of a anesthesia, let's say, or a distraction from feeling my feelings, right? I didn't want that anymore. So I used this little process where you simply write in a pencil on a square piece of paper what you want to remove from your life. So in this case, I did various. I did alcohol, I did tobacco, I did things like that. So I wrote on the page alcohol in pencil. I then erase the pencil, and then I used like a big black marker to write my name on the piece of paper. So it's sort of like a process of you're erasing the undesirable thing, and you're replacing it with you, the focus on you. And then you can keep that piece of paper somewhere, or you can burn it and send it to the universe. You send your intention into the universe for it to be answered, for it to come true. So that was one of the magical practices that I had done. And also a second one was a sigil. Another very simple magical practice that anyone can try. And look up a couple of videos about how to do it, which is where you create an intention. You simply come up with a phrase that you kind of want to bring into reality. So, for example, I prefer to breathe fresh air. Right? This was my intention, not to smoke anymore. So you usually, if you're going to make a sigil, you use a positive sentence. You don't use I don't want to smoke or I don't smoke. You'll make an affirmative sentence in the present tense. So I prefer to breathe fresh air. You write this phrase out, and then you remove all the vowels, first of all, and any repetitive letters. So you end up with a list of letters that come from the phrase, come from the intention that you have. You then use these letters, you combine them to create an image, a symbol, put them all on top of each other in a sort of a circle. Again, on a square piece of paper. And then with that sigil, you're going to charge it, or you're going to put your intention into it, and then you're going to burn it or put it somewhere. There's different various methods. So they're just to share with you a couple of the simple actions that I did, a couple of the simple magical practices that I did, which were very much about healing, making my life better. And I got what I asked for. Always be careful what you wish for or what you pray for, because you'll get it. It's not always easy. Magic doesn't suddenly go poof and your problems are gone. But if you put the intention out there that you want to solve that problem, it's going to create situations in your life. It's going to bring that in for you to deal with it. If you pray to God and say, "Oh, make me strong, make me strong. I need to be strong." You better be damn ready for some challenges, because challenges are going to arrive. That's going to make you strong. So that's how it works. And those little magical rituals I did to heal, to remove negative things from my life, they seemed to manifest um, with the help of this entity that appeared, Lucifer. And then through finding this tribe where I could start to consecrate and take ayahuasca again. Mm. So I got in contact with this local place, this local tribe. In Brazil, they speak Portuguese, but the name in English was Tribe of Light. When I say tribe, you probably think about indigenous people in the forest around the fire, a shaman with feathers, with a headdress, and that type of thing. But the culture of the indigenous, the culture of those people has spread out of the forest and become uh, become part of many people's lives who would not be indigenous, who would not be from there, but who would follow their way of doing things, like almost like a religion or a path, let's say. So shamanism there is actually considered a religion, and many people from the city, let's say descendants of people, white people or black people who came to Brazil, as opposed to the indigenous people or the native people who were there a very, very long time. They have adopted, many people have adopted their way of life in relation to spirituality and these medicine. So you could call it a sort of neo shamanism, where the various aspects and practices and fundamentals of the shamanic practices of the indigenous people have been utilized, um, and even combined with other forms of spirituality too. So the tribe I found, when I say a tribe, that's what is that's the term that's often used to describe these centers, these temples where people will go, um, possibly once a week, maybe a bit less than that. Depends on the person, but yeah, it's almost like a religious thing where you go and it becomes what you do. Like how someone would go to church on the weekend, go to church on Sunday, or go to temple or mosque once per week, had that kind of vibe to it. So I went to this tribe. I went to this tribe of light, and this will definitely be the beginning of a big process, a long process of healing, but also discovery, self-discovery. Um, the the ritual would take place in this very large room, almost like a function room, a large space that could fit a lot of people inside. And the place was the structure of a tribe. You had uh, leaders, essentially. In this case, it was a couple. You would call them godfather and godmother would be the translation in English. So the godfather and the godmother of the tribe, right? So the matriarch and patriarch, let's say, if you want to consider it in the like the structure of a tribe, right? You've got these leaders. They're the ones who conduct the ritual. They prepare the music for the rituals. They obviously make or source the medicine, which is served to the people, and you can expect that they would have a lot of experience in that. Um, I didn't know much about any of this at the time. It was all very new to me. The first ritual was quite nice. It was quite mild, to be honest. The amount of medicine that was served was small, which is generally what you would do if it's your first time in the place, right? Um, but as much as I was driven to heal, as much as I really wanted this, there was a lot of me that was unaccepting of what I was seeing. Like when I got there, I was kind of like, oh Jesus, like it's fucking smelly hippies everywhere, all like hippie type people, and I was kind of judgmental. I was very judgmental when I got there. Um, but the first ritual went really nicely. The music was beautiful. I was connecting with this fantastic shamanic music, mostly music, and it was all in Portuguese singing, right? The ritual was themed also. So this ritual was called Madrecita Ayahuasca, the little mother ayahuasca. And ayahuasca, the medicine, the spirit behind the medicine is feminine. She's like a mother. She's like a mother that will take care of you and make sure you're okay. And now and again, give you a smack on the back of the head when you're not listening, right? When you're not following the the instructions or the revelations that she gives you, in a sense. So yeah, very loving mother energy, but also you get that little element of tough love in there too, right? Which is necessary. So I did the first ritual, and uh, during the process, you do feel stuff. You feel kind of a mix of emotions. You feel hot. You feel cold. The medicine expands your consciousness and your senses, so you can feel more. You can see clearer. You can hear more, right? And then also what it does is if you haven't opened your spiritual vision or your spiritual connection, it can turn a key on this in you. So it can unlock your connection with the spiritual, right? Before anything like that happens in your life, we're very material. We don't understand these higher dimensions, higher vibrations, other realms, all of those types of things. They seem unattainable or fantasy. But what this medicine can do is just turn the key on that door and open that aspect of you, of who you are, and give you access to higher realms, uh, to entities, to beings, to your own self, primarily. A lot of what you will see, maybe in visions and things like that, they're reflections of your own psyche, of your own subconscious. Um, you can get pretty deep about those things. We'll talk more about them. But yeah, I felt it was a very positive experience. Not only that, I was interested in knowing more, and I liked the the feeling of finding a group of people. Um, that was kind of cool, right? And so the tribe, uh, like I said, has this structure of the leaders, two people who conduct everything, and then almost like an inner circle of people around them who would probably have a lot of experience, a lot of connection, have done a lot of work on themselves already, and then they would be like the helpers, during the ritual. So they're called guardians, right? And those guardians will then be responsible for taking care of all of the people during the process of the rituals, which could be 3 hours long, 4 hours long. Um, and yeah, on occasion, the guardians would come over and they would, empty your bucket because everybody had a bucket to get sick into. Often part of the process, you purge a lot of things that are no longer serving you. This is part of the healing process too. So that they'll come over and they'll take your bag from your bucket and they'll put a new bag in your bucket, make sure everybody's okay, stuff like that. If you need anything, you can ask them. If you need help to go to the toilet, if you feel a bit wobbly, they'll help you. So you've got this structure, you've got the leaders, and you've got these guardians, these people who work there, essentially, uh, an involuntary way. It's not like it's not like they're getting paid necessarily to work there. But so that's how it works. You go there, you take the medicine. The theme of the ritual um, will change each time, depending on the people running the place. In this case, it was Madrecita Ayahuasca, so it was very shamanic. It was very roots, and quite calm and loving. But there's many themes that can be incorporated into the ritual, and where it kind of departs a little bit from maybe the indigenous shamanic way of doing things and into a more neo-shamanic way of doing things would be where rituals are themed with gods, entities, spiritual beings who are not necessarily from that indigenous culture. Like you can do an ayahuasca ritual. I just did one last week actually here in Dublin, uh, for calling, for example, Archangel Michael, or you could do a ritual calling Jesus. So the music and the choice of theme in the ritual makes a big difference to how that ritual will go, to what will happen during the ritual, and what energy you're connecting with in that ritual. Like I said, when you expand your consciousness, when you open this part of yourself with the medicine, and then combine that with the ritualistic aspects of calling certain energies, certain entities, certain spirits, certain gods. You combine that, and then you can have very real, very visceral connections with those entities, with those gods. So, um, so yeah, that's how it goes. Um, it, after the ritual had finished, I was like, yeah, I want to be part of this place. This is great. I need to know more. I'm coming back. And I came back the next week. I had felt like I had cured something. I had healed something in me. And I came back the next week, the very next weekend. And the second ritual was actually, uh, let's say, a sort of a special occasion. Just happened to be, uh, where they had a live musician singing the shamanic songs, whereas previously it had been on a big sound system, the first ritual. But the second ritual, there was the singer, live singer. And it was again, very powerful ritual, very beautiful. The singer was very good and again, opened up more of myself, had more visions. I'm not going to go into the details of all of the visions of each ritual. Each ritual takes hours. Many things happen inside that time. At least for me, they did. Many visions, many realizations, many, let's say, downloads. You kind of sometimes you get these downloads of information, these knowings that come to you. It's like your intuition is just pushed into knowing things. And then those are like lessons that you can then take with you into your life that you need to apply. Um, so yeah, I felt like at this stage, I felt like I'm getting better at life. The hardships and the suffering that I had been going through, they've sort of calmed down. They've sort of like, I wouldn't say they're gone, but it was like I was hacking away at them bit by bit, and it was giving me hope and renewed interest in life again. And it was quite the positive time compared to how I had been feeling. And I was definitely on a high, um, even after the rituals, you don't you kind of carry that elevated feeling, that elevated sort of way of looking at things into your life day to day. So it definitely has a very, very strong impact um on your life, on how you go about things day to day, how you feel about things, right? And I thought, well, all of this is what I asked for, right? It's what I did, my little magical works that I had been learning about the past few months. Um, it's what I asked for. I put my intention out there to get control of drinking, to reduce these toxins, to be these negative things that I knew were masking issues. I knew, right? And yeah, things really started to change after this. Um, in within in between the second ritual and the third ritual, which would have been, and then the following week after, we're talking like start of September now, 2021, by the way. This started August 2021, which is funny because I'm starting to make these videos right now in August 2024, exactly 3 years from the date of this first ritual. It's funny how time ripples like that. You come to see those patterns in time too after a while. Um, so yeah, between the second ritual and the third one that I would do there, um, I realized that the this magic connection and this spiritual connection didn't just exist um, during rituals, that I had started something. I had started a path. I had, through understanding a little bit more about magic, through practicing it a little bit, and through going to these rituals, which expanded my consciousness even further, I realized that I had started a path. I was on this path. And yeah, it was in some sense, a magical path. If I want to say it like that, like what is magic? What is the magical path? It's the movement from wherever you are now in terms of your state of consciousness to becoming, uh, let's say, enlightened or illuminated or understanding who you really are and why you're really here. You know, the magical path in a Western sense, right? It's almost like our version of what Eastern philosophies and religions will do. They've got their own way there, but all roads lead to Rome. So essentially different paths to the same destination. So I realized that I had started on this path, and I felt that uh, this wasn't something that could necessarily be switched off anymore. It wasn't something that I could necessarily just turn away from. It was too fascinating, the things that I had been seeing during the rituals, the visit from Lucifer. I'll let you in on a spoiler. That wasn't Lucifer. I would find out maybe a couple of years after this point that that wasn't Lucifer. It was, in fact, another entity who came back again down the line. But we'll get there. Um, Anyway, yeah, during the period between the second ritual and the third ritual, a strange event happened. I was in the shopping mall with my husband at the time, and that COVID pandemic had already kicked in, so there was nobody out. We were in the mall. It was on a Wednesday evening. The mall was empty, like empty. And we were walking through this deserted mall, and up ahead was a random lady, a random woman, literally the only other person we had seen in the mall. We're walking in her direction, and she's walking in our direction, and as she approached us in this silent, empty mall, she just screamed at me. Like it was like she was looking at something that was behind me. That's how the only way I can describe it. She screamed and put her hand up and kind of went weak for a moment and just grabbed her like little cart and gave us a bit of a wide berth and went around us. And I looked at my husband at the time and was like, what the fuck was that? And it was like, I really don't know. That was really weird. But at that moment, I felt a presence behind me. I felt like she saw something that, that was behind me. And I don't know why, but that's what I felt like. I don't think she was screaming at me. I'm not that fucking scary looking, but yeah, she saw something that was behind me. And it was also around this time that I had started to understand a little bit more about the spiritual world in a very light, in a very gentle way at this stage. There are various religions in Brazil, various uh, belief structures, let's say, various different types of spiritist religions, right? So there's Spiritism, which is a religion in Brazil. There's Umbanda, it's another religion in Brazil. And there's various other ones too, where there are fundamentals of magic used as part of the religious practices, and mediums are utilized within those religions, and the mediums incorporate or communicate with various families of spirits, let's say various types of spirits, what they would say are evolved spirits who use these religions, who use these centers as means of working through the mediums to help the community, help people in the community. So it's not shamanism, but in the same way, shamanism has this, shamans have a connection with spirit. There's various other groups and other religions who also have a connection with spirit like that. And then they will use that connection to benefit the community, to benefit the people who come there. And sometimes to benefit themselves at the expense of others, which was a difficult thing to have to come to learn. It's not all sunshine and roses, I'm afraid. But yeah, that what she saw behind me, I would later discover was a guardian spirit of mine. And I would I would come to learn more and more through the structures of some of those religions there about my own guides or spirits who accompanied me. You know, there's different faces, different thoughts on it. It's quite complex, but some religions there would say that we all have guides. We all have different types of guides who assist us or who are there to assist us through different processes, different times in our life. Um, and it was at this stage where I would start to encounter them, start to not to necessarily see them, but to get in contact with them. And after, I would say it was the fourth ritual. Just looking at my notes. It was the fourth ritual of ayahuasca in this tribe of light, as it was called, where the theme was two goddesses or orishas, their divinities from Africa. They're part of the African matrix of gods and goddesses. And these divinities would be cultivated and followed in various religions, some African religions, which came from Africa to Brazil with the slaves, and then some Brazilian religions, which incorporate those entities, those deities into their practice. So those deities or those orishas, um, they are representations of the forces of nature. They're divinities that represent different aspects of nature. And this particular ritual, number four in the tribe of light, was themed after two of these goddesses from this African matrix that were part of Brazilian culture too at this stage. These two goddesses, or these two orishas, were called Iemanjá and Oshun. And these two goddesses are associated with the water. So Iemanjá is the queen of the ocean. She is the life behind the ocean, the consciousness behind the ocean. And Oshun is the Orisha of the rivers and waterfalls. So where Yemanja is salt water, the ocean, Oshun is fresh water, rivers and waterfalls. Right? They represent other things too, self-love, fertility, things like that, purification. And so it was this fourth ritual, which was halfway through September. So only within 1 month of um, my visit from Lucifer, I had done four ayahuasca rituals, each one with a different theme, and each one this key, this key that was opening my vision, opening my mind, and kept turning. I kept learning, and in a very, very short time, um, I was able to connect in this fourth ritual with guides, with spirits, with these entities that were um, considered your guardians, for example. And when I say I was able to connect with them, it wasn't necessarily something that I figured out how to do in the moment. However, one of my little magic squares that I made before, with my sigil, my intention was to connect with my guides, to connect with my spirit guides. And in ritual 4 of taking ayahuasca, I did. I connected with them, or I should say, they connected with me. And it was when I realized that uh, I was a medium, and a type of medium that was able to, or is able to, incorporate these energies, incorporate these guides, these spirits, and essentially give them, or they can take a certain level of control over your body, over my body, over the medium's body, and the connection with them allows this sort of physical touch. I have this medunity that spirits and the energies in my environment have the facility of touching. I feel their touch very easily. There's different types of medunity, all sorts of types. Uh, my visual medunity, so what I can see energetically and spiritually, um, is is very clear. That I have a very visual medunity. No, I'm sure in part of that is the gift that I was given from Lucifer, this green stone. He said it was the gift of sight. So I do have that visual medunity, but I also have this other medunity that's very physical. It's like an incorporation medunity where I can allow the use of my body, my mouth, my hands, um, even my full body. I can allow the use of it over to the spirit. Um, these Brazilian religions, like Umbanda, for example, what they do. They work with a group of mediums. They work with all of their spirit guides who manifest through the mediums. And then because these spirit guides are more evolved, they're not limited, firstly, by physical form. They know magic, they know all sorts of things. And guides, those spiritual guides will incorporate in mediums, and then they will do what they can do through the mediums to help people. People will come to those religions on a weekly basis, for example, for consultations. They'll sit down and they'll talk with these spiritual beings through the mouth of a medium who will simply facilitate the conversation with the entity and the person coming for help, for consultation. Whatever sort of problems they have in their lives, they can go there and get some help. The entities will do often a sort of magic, a sort of energy manipulation or Reiki on the people, removing negative energies or toxic energies from them. They can sometimes be removing spiritual attachments, obsessor type spirits that connect to people, causing them problems in their lives, and that type of thing, as well as just good advice. They, again, they're not limited by the physical form. They can see right through you. They can see your path that you're on, and they can give you some very poignant and good advice about the issues that you might be going through, help you see things in a different way. They tend to be very wise. And there's various groups of spirits that work in those Brazilian religions. There's all sorts of guides. There's all sorts of families of entities that can work with you. And so yeah, basically during this fourth ritual, um, I started to realize that there is most certainly entities, non-physical intelligences, spirits, if you want to call them that, that exist and are there, often with jobs to help us along our path. Or, there's also just kind of other spirits too, other uh, souls who may simply just be dead or may have passed on. And it was at this stage, a ritual number four, when I really discovered in a very strong way, when I really got this like without a doubt confirmation of non-physical existence, spiritual existence. So in the ritual, I again, I'm not going to go into all the visions and all the processes. There's so many. You go through a lot of stuff, but yeah, I had a moment of cleaning, as they call it. You clean, you vomit out uh, stuff that doesn't serve you anymore. And it was just after this moment when I first started to incorporate spirits, what I guess were my guides, what I believed were my guides at the time. And I was sitting there, music was playing, these beautiful songs for these orishas from Africa. And this music was playing. It was very powerful. The energy of those orishas, of those forces of nature, when your consciousness is expanded and you feel them, it's really amazing. It's one of the most amazing things I had ever experienced up until that point in my life, right? Including the 10 years ago ayahuasca experience, including the visit from Lucifer, this energy, these orishas, and what happened in this ritual blew my fucking mind. And there I was anyway. I was just sitting in my little spot during these rituals. Everyone has their little spot with their cushion, their yoga mat, whatever, uh, their bucket. So I was just sitting in my little spot. And suddenly my whole body started to vibrate. I was like shaking, 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 shaking. And it was almost like I was being puppeteered, like a marionette. My body wasn't necessarily, not that it wasn't doing what I wanted it to, but I wasn't wanting it to do anything. It was just it started to go off by itself and move. And these vibrations ran through me, up and down, ran through my body. And then I kind of stumbled up to my feet. It was very wobbly. It was like I was a baby again. It was like it was like I didn't know how to walk. And it kind of makes sense when thinking about the fact that it's the first time maybe in this guardian, this spirit was going to use my apparatus, my body to manifest here in the physical world, right? So yeah, I kind of stumbled to my feet, wobbly rickety knees, like as if I never walked before. And then like the movements were kind of jerky, like a little bit like um, forceful almost. And yeah, I started to kind of move and walk, but in a very rigid, I'm just gonna say it, it was as if I had like looked like I had cerebral palsy. No offense to anybody who does, but you know what I mean. I looked like that. It was like that the spirit was just getting used to me almost. Anyway, the spirit in my body, or not in it technically, but puppeteering my body, made me get up and walk in this rickety, wobbly fashion towards the wall of the room, toward the wall of the temple. And as I got to the wall, it spun me around. Like I spun around out of nowhere and felt an extreme push, like a push that launched me up against the wall. At which point the loudest, deepest laugh burst forth from my mouth. Right? It wasn't me laughing. It was this spirit. It was this guardian spirit. It was this deep, heavy, dark laugh just came belting out of my throat. And it was quite prolonged. It was a long, gargling, laugh like this. So I'm just like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? I'm just like, this is insane. I'm loving every moment of it, by the way. I'm like, this is great. There's life after death. All my fears went away. All my fears of you know, existential fears, they all went away. I was like, this is cool. This is 100%, without a doubt, confirmation of spirit, of non-physical intelligence interacting with the physical plane, interacting through me. And yeah, so I was pushed up against this wall. I had just finished laughing. Spirit was using my body, and my eyes were closed too. I opened my eyes, and there was one of the guardians, one of those helpers I mentioned earlier, and he was in front of me, and he was on his knees, and he was just doing this, like kind of bowing to this entity, to this spirit that had inhabited or had taken control of me, of my body. And he was just almost like greeting him, right? And this guardian came and he whispered to my ear, he said, "Hey, would you like to go back to your spot? Would you like to go and sit down?" So you kind of got to sit in your place. And again, it wasn't me. I didn't want to be singled out. I didn't want the whole place looking at me. I didn't want attention. So yeah, I kind of wanted to go and just sit down. But at the same time, I didn't, because this was so cool. I was like, well, I'm just gonna let the spirit do what it's gonna do, right? So the guy asked me, "Do you want to go and sit down in your spot?" And spirit just like this. And then he slid down the wall and just sat down at the wall, looking around the room like this. And then a couple more guardians came, and the godmother of the tribe came and kind of making a little semicircle around me. They were all doing this kind of like saying thank you to the spirit in a way, acknowledging him, and then saying that, okay, you need to go up now, and he needs to sit down in his place. And there was this sort of interaction between them and the spirit that had taken control of my body. And yeah, so they brought me back over, and they sat me down, and that was that. So I was kind of processing what had just happened. I was like, oh, that was really fucking cool and new and exciting. that means I'm a medium, and that means I can incorporate spirits, and I was all these new things that appeared, all these new ideas and new possibilities and stuff like that. So, and after I sat down, after they sat me down, I felt that vibration again. It was like a very strong, abrupt energy or vibration that ran through my body, and it was almost like a let go. That entity had basically detached or stopped um, incorporating with my body, incorporating with me, right? And the ritual continued, different music, da, 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 da. And the it happened the second time, right? However, it was this time a similar process of vibration, but it was a different entity. It was a different energy. It wasn't the same entity that did it the first time. It was a different one. And this entity was like an indigenous guy. He was like an Indian, like from the forest. And in this one, um he didn't say anything. He didn't use my mouth like the first one did. This big laugh. Uh, Second one, he was like this indigenous guy, and he started to bang on my chest, like this, banging on my chest in line with the music, right? I really liked that. He had such a very nice feeling. Like not that the first one didn't. The first one had a denseness to him. This one had a more of a lightness to him. He was boom, 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 banging on my chest like this. And he also got up for a moment. He was less wobbly, and he would kind of just bang his feet on the ground in rhythm with the music. Right? Feel like imagine in the forest and in your bare feet just banging, tapping your feet on the ground to the rhythm of the drums to the music. That's what he was doing. He was just tapping his feet on the ground. And yeah, so it was anyway, it was during this ritual that ritual number four uh, that I started to receive spirits. Right? I started to receive these spirits. It felt really cool. I felt pretty good. And I knew at that time, I knew these particular spirits because of what I had been absorbing and learning about these other Brazilian religions that I had mentioned before, like Umbanda, who work with various families of spirits, or let's say archetypes of spirits. So I knew these entities. There was a third one too, who incorporated in me, and very nimble on the feet, not difficult. It wasn't wobbly, and he basically did sort of the dance, right? One of the most amazing parts of the ayahuasca rituals is in these expanded states of consciousness when you feel the music, when you feel the vibration, when you feel the energy of a god or an orisha or an angel, for example, when you feel it and you vibe with it, when you move with the energy, with the waves that are coming from the music, you can have the most amazing moments of dance. As you dance, you move energy, you move energy through you, and you have these most amazing moments of beautiful dancing, dancing like you've never danced before in your life because you weren't really ever a good dancer. And during these rituals, you start to loosen up. You start to give yourself to the vibration, and you connect with it. And it's awesome. Right, this part is really fun. Um, but yeah, that third entity that came, he did a kind of a capoeira dance, right? It was really cool. I don't know capoeira, but this entity does, and started to do some capoeira movements, and actually jumped and rolled on the floor and finished in a like a pose like it was the Olympics. But he rolled towards a little altar in the tribe in this room. There's a space that you have an altar. So he he incorporated in me and did a capoeira dance, and then dived and rolled towards the altar. And like, I'm allowing this to happen, but I'm still conscious. I'm not gone, while it's like we're sharing the space. And he rolled towards the altar, and I said, "Oh fuck, I'm gonna roll into the altar and I'm gonna smash it." But it was just perfectly aligned that he rolled in front of the altar and bowed. He did this bow and put his hands out like this. And once again, there was this vibration as like this vibration as he left. You could feel him. I could feel them arrive. There was a very strong vibration as they arrived, and then they were there with me. And then there's a very strong vibration as they left again. So those three entities, those three guides, those three spirits were were spirits that I understood who they were when they came, because of the information that I had been absorbing about these from this Brazilian religion, the Banda. I didn't practice this religion, but I had been a couple of times to their temples, see what it was all about. To be perfectly honest, when I first went there, I was just like, this is bullshit. Like, they're just people. They're just people. They're not really uh, incorporating spirits. They're just people, and they're telling people what they want to hear. And I had all this skepticism, right? But can damn well guarantee you that skepticism went away, um, because I started to incorporate spirits, and then I could understand. Oh, right, okay, now I get it. Those spirits work through the apparatus of that religion to help people. The people do charity essentially in that religion, to increase their connection, to increase their connection with spirit, so that they can be of service to people. It's all about charity. And they don't take any money, which should have been a good enough clue. If they were making up stuff, usually they want money, right? But anyway, those three entities that appeared, um, were entities that work within, uh, well, not say exclusively, but they actualize, or they materialize within those religions, within Umbanda, and they work through the mediums in that religion, Umbanda. So again, it's not the tribe, it's not shamanism, it's a totally different religion. However, there's crossover, especially when the shamanic ritual with the ayahuasca is using, or is in the theme of gods and deities from those religions. Of course, the entities that work in those religions are going to actualize in those rituals too, because you're calling them essentially by connecting with those deities, by connecting with those orishas. You're calling the energy of that orisha and all of the spirits who work within that vibration of energy. So, the first entity that manifested in me was Eshu. This is the guardian spirit. People would say that they're on the left. right? They're dense. They work in lower realms, often in a psychopomp role. So like they save souls, they go get them from where they're suffering and bring them up in vibration to where they can get some help, among many other things. But that was the first one, the Eshu. The second spirit that manifested within me was a Kaboku, which is the name given to another entity. Again, the archetype is an indigenous person, like with a headdress with feathers, from the forest, more shamanic, in fact. But they are entities from Umbanda. Um, and the third one was Bayano, which is another entity cultivated within Umbanda, that religion. And yeah, they have another archetype. You know, people from the bay, people from the beach, people from that area. Um, and each family of spirits that actuate or work within Umbanda would have different specialities or different uh, ways of working. And each, they can all do energy manipulation. They can all do a certain degree of magic. They can all do like sort of Reiki on the people who's not there. But then you'd have some sort of specializations, like uh, certain ones might be better for removing unwanted spirits who attach to people, who they call their obsessors. So there's these obsessor spirits who can attach to you, start to drain your energy, make your life a bit of a mess. And so you might have some entities who would be much more suited to removing them, sending them on than others. Some would be more maybe good with matters of the heart. Others would be very specialized in healing and things like that. So there's various families, let's say, of spirits who kind of take on an archetype to work through. So um, that one anyway, that was my first really strong, my first strong proof that there's most certainly spirits and entities out there that are non-physical. And we normally can't interact with them or see them because we're on a different vibration. We're essentially in different dimensions. However, as we progress on our spiritual path, as we raise our vibration, we get closer to their vibration, and it becomes easier to communicate, easier to interact with them. Um, and yeah, so that was the first time I had such a strong connection with them. Also, the deities of that religion, the theme of that ritual, Yemanja and Oshun, very strong connection with them. Very beautiful moment with them. I had a very interesting visualization during that ritual too. It was my intention to connect with those guides. I wanted that to happen. And during the start of the ritual, I visualized myself on top of a lighthouse. And I was sitting in the lighthouse at the top, and I had the light going around and around and around. The light was blue because the theme of the ritual was Yemanja and Oshun, which are deities of the waters. So water is, let's say blue, right? And I had this blue light, and it was like my signal to them. I was like signaling them. I was like, hey, I'm here. I'm calling you in. So the mind is a powerful thing. Our visualizations, it's a very powerful thing. And the the lighthouse that I was on top of uh, was incredibly beautiful. It became a very beautiful scene that incorporated the energies of both Orishas, of both Yemanja and Oshun, because the lighthouse was on a tiny little outcrop, a little island or peninsula, that came out in a spiral from the mainland, which was just cliffs, and all along the cliffs there were waterfalls falling into the ocean, and the ocean surrounded the lighthouse. So I had the energy of the waterfalls, the energy of Oshun coming down into the ocean, which was the energy of Yemanja. So I was surrounded by water and surrounded by these orishas. And the energy of these orishas was very present. It was very strong, very beautiful, very, very beautiful. I would later discover along my path that Oshun, this orisha, is my mother. So in certain religions in Brazil, they will believe or they will understand that you are more or less connected with a mother and a father figure energetically, or these representations of nature. Yeah? And one of them will be your mother and one of them will be your father, in a sense. And it's kind of just a way of understanding the energy of the person, right? Um, and I would later discover that I am a son of Oshun, that I'm very associated or connected with her. And maybe that's why that ritual was so powerful for me, because I am that way. I do have that uh, vibration or that connection that uh, with her, with fresh water, with rivers, with waterfalls. So yeah, it only gets crazier from here on in, but I'll leave it there because I think the video is probably getting a little bit too long. And thanks if you've made it this far. Thanks for watching. I hope it was interesting. I hope it was informative. I'll try my best to share anything useful or interesting that I learned along the way. And who knows, maybe in future I'll do some separate videos if people are interested. You can say in the comments if you want to know more about Orishas, or you want to know more about that religion, Umbanda, or more about shamanism. Just let me know and I'll see what I can do. Um, and thanks again for watching. Take it easy. See you next time.